is it for? Is it combative? Does it require an alternate response? Those are some of the things that we hope to get into tonight. But just for those of you who may not be firmly acclimated to the phrase Black Lives Matter, it is a chapter-based organization that is national. So there are chapters in various cities and various states. The word from national now is they're not really accepting chapters because they want to build infrastructure. And once they build infrastructure so that they can support chapters in other cities, they want to increase and support more and more individuals so that they can move and propel the movement forward. But that does not prevent organizations and individuals from different states and different cities from doing work within the Black Lives Matter movement. Keep in mind that it is not a moment. It is a movement. It is something that is progressively rolling forward. We're actively seeking change. We're actively seeking solutions. So when we say Black Lives Matter, what does that mean? What are we really talking about? And there's a lot of misconception about that. We've always heard the retort to Black Lives Matter that, well, all lives really matter, right? Well, when we really break that down, if you want all lives to matter, shouldn't Black lives be included in that? If all lives truly matter, should there be any difficulty in stating that Black lives matter? Is Black Lives Matter a confrontational statement versus an affirmational statement? Are we really truly saying what we want to say is that our lives matter just as much? But that just doesn't fit quite as cute in a hashtag. Right? But where did the hashtag come from? Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, and Opal Tomete, the co-founders of the Black Lives Matter movement, 3 queer women of color who, after the assault, death, murder of Trayvon Martin, made a simple hashtag, Black Lives Matter. This young boy, 17 years old, who actually the anniversary of his death was just 2 days ago, walking home, had nothing on his person but a can of Arizona iced tea and a packet of Skittles. An individual who saw themselves as a vigilante saw fit to take their life. And not only did they take their life, but they got away with it. And it's become this ongoing theme of anti-blackness and this ongoing theme of the war on black people. We don't have to just start with Trayvon Martin. We can go all the way back to Emmett Till and the history that this country has with showing us that black lives don't matter. And when it comes to the violence that's committed against them, there not being any justice there for us. So that hashtag is rooted in the experience of black people who've experienced that dehumanization, who've experienced that oppression, who've experienced that injustice. It's a cry asking for all of those things. So when you're talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, it's not just a hashtag, right? There's things that we're seeking. If we're saying we want an end to the war on black people, what does that really mean? When we're saying that we want restorative justice, what does that really mean? We're saying loving engagement, black villages, empathy, black families, intergenerational, transgender affirming. These are the things that are encompassed within the Black Lives Matter movement. Because Black Lives Matter adheres to the principle of unapologetic blackness. And unapologetic blackness is a term that was coined by the BYP 100. What does that mean? That means I love my blackness and yours. That means that blackness is intersectional, which means that if you're black and queer, you're still black. If you're black and you're trans, you're still black. If you're black and a woman, you're still black. If you're black and you are differently abled, you're still black. And all of that blackness needs to be loved and affirmed and not oppressed consistently, not only from a white supremacist lens, but even within the black community, and that we fight for each other equally, looking for liberation, right? These are the guiding principles of the Black Lives Matter movement. So when you see the Black Lives movement being minimalized into marches and protests that seemingly don't go anywhere, they don't see all of the real work that activists and community organizers are doing on the ground in their communities with the school systems to make sure that these guiding principles see a realization, right? And then, of course, we have the movement for Black Lives. And I know people are saying, Dominic, we're talking semantics. We were just talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. What is this movement for Black Lives thing? Well, I'll tell you. The critique of the Black Lives Matter movement was, what do you want? You're doing all this marching, doing all this protesting. You've got this hashtag, and everybody's talking about Black Lives now, but in the grand scheme of things, what are you asking for? What is it you want? You have audience with the President of the United States. You've got President Barack Obama sitting at the same table with activists and leaders from the Black Lives Matter movement. What is it that you want? There was an assumption that there wasn't anything tangible. That's because the policy platform had not been rolled out yet. If you have not yet done so, I encourage you, and we actually have handouts up here, to go to the Movement for Black Lives policy platform page. It's m4bl.org. And there is an extensive policy platform asking for tangible things. Again, an end to the war on black people. Reparations. Real quick, what's the going interest rate on 48 centimeter? Anybody know? Divestment, political power. And if you're familiar with the Black Power movement, a lot of these things aren't different from what was advocated for then, but we still have yet to attain it. So when we're seeking these things, there are tangible things that can be done in government. There are tangible things that can be done in communities, in schools, that can help us to attain these 6 things. But there are specific policy platforms outlined where people can take action. You don't have to necessarily be a Black Lives Matter activist to do work in the Black Lives Matter movement. You can affirm and work within the Black Lives Matter movement by adhering to the policy platform and the movement for Black lives. They're saying there's something you can do. Everybody may not have the fortitude to walk out in the middle of the street and lock arms. Everybody might not be able to get on a bullhorn and lead a chant or lead a march. Everybody might not have the ability to ask for somebody's job when they're racially discriminating people of color. But can you help seek economic justice? Can you help seek an end to food deserts and food insecurity? There are things that you can do from where you are, regardless of what your background or identity is, to help in the movement for Black lives. So in discussing this, I'm just one voice, and I don't want to be the cisgender, African-American, male, straight, Christian father who is the stereotypical charismatic leader of the Black Lives Matter movement. We're not looking for Dr. King. We're not looking for Malcolm X. The leaders of this movement, as you will see, are primarily women, and women of color included. So that's what we wanted to make sure that our panel is comprised of. We have a couple of panelists who are back en route. As you can tell, if you're not an IUPUI student, and even if you are a student, park it's hard. So we have individuals who are going out to grab them and come right back, but hopefully by the time we get to their introductions, they'll be able to join us on the panel. First and foremost, again, my name is Dominic Dorsey. Not only am I an employee here working for Adaptive Educational Services, and if you don't know where AES is, it's right across the hall right there. But I'm also an instructor in Africana Studies. I teach a second 8 weeks course in anti-blackness in the United States, as well as the Black Lives Matter movement. But I'm also the president of Don't Sleep. Don't Sleep is an organization that was founded to do intersectional work. We're a social justice organization that is doing work in the Black Lives Matter movement. And Don't Sleep stands for Deconstructing Oppression Now Through Solidarity, Liberation, Empowerment, Equity, and Perseverance. Essentially, we believe that liberation is not a mutually exclusive concept. You know, if you don't want everybody to be free, you don't want liberation, you want privilege. That's how we operate. And I'm more than proud to introduce, first and foremost, my vice president. She's also the president of UNESCO, and she can explain to you exactly what that is. But first and foremost, can we give a hand to Ms. Satuel Cole? This next young woman is our National Action Chair, which means that every time that there is something going on within the Black Lives Matter movement, there may be a national call to action. When the killing of Rekia Boyd happened, and we needed to have a national call to action to get Officer Servin fired. When there was the murder of Tamir Rice, when there was the murder of Anaya Stanley Jones, there's always activists on the ground, sometimes family members, sometimes individuals who are connected with them, who are asking individuals in other cities, other states, to join with them in a national action of solidarity. And this individual is the person who on the phone calls, makes the connections, and makes sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing on the ground. So please put your hands together and give it up for Ms. Star Jones. Next up is an organization that is also here in the city doing work within the Black Lives Matter movement, and they actually got their start going down to Ferguson. They were on the ground, they were meeting with activists right around the time of the incident with Mike Brown. But first and foremost, a woman that I've been very impressed with, who definitely has a fire for social justice, has a fire for Black Lives Matter movement. And if anybody knows anything about her, they cannot say anything other than she is unapologetically Black. Please give it up for Miss Leah Humphrey. That's a template typo. I'll fix that later.
I'm like, is that her government name?
No, that's common law marriage.
That's her government name. That's your government name.
And we also have one other panelist who is actually on campus and trying to find this room. She's another woman who is related to the Black Lives Matter movement through the organization Indy 10. Also went down to Ferguson. Also very on fire for the social justice movement. Also very unapologetically Black and pro-Black Lives Matter movement. Her name is. And there's no petition would be complete without being able to have the because there is always Black Lives Matter, what about white lives, right? What are white people supposed to do with regards to the Black Lives Matter movement? Well, there's an organization that can help people get involved and understand exactly what the answer to that question is. And it's SURGE. SURGE stands for Standing Up for Racial Justice. Showing up. So I've been saying it wrong all this time.
It's language, so
I like that. Yeah. Good work. So, without further ado, since you chose to speak first, this gentleman is a social work major. He's also someone who is very knowledgeable, very humble, very willing to do the work in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, but also in terms of expanding his knowledge and lexicon on issues of oppression impacting all individuals. Please give it up for Luke Pamer. How that happened, but I got y'all's last name.
That's hilarious.
I love it. And again, an individual is, we like to use the term woke a lot, but this person actually personifies it. She's very in tune, very aware, very quick to check people when they misstep and say the wrong thing, especially when it comes to collecting her white allies and friends and siblings. Her name is Victoria Haley. So just getting right into this thing, and we've done panels like this very similar beforehand, but I wanted to ask you straight up, how did you get involved in the Black Lives Matter movement, and what does it mean to you to do this work? And I will start with either Leah, Star, Sachs, whoever wants to start.
Well, I got started in the Black Lives Matter movement. I actually started my activism career, although it's not paid yet. My activism career started in the fight against the oppressive laws they keep trying to pass for if you are gay or LGBTQIA2+, or any of those. And obviously doing that work, it's so intersectional that's where Black Lives Matter came in. It was right around the time when Black Lives Matter took off. And so I just got involved because, it's kind of hard not to, especially when it affects every aspect of your life. It was just kind of, if you're, any kind of minority in this country, I don't see how you can't be an activist because your life truly is on the verge, so.
And because you didn't hear you give a round of applause, this is her.
It's okay.
Collect yourself. You get to go last. Good. Leah, how about you?
How did I get involved with Black Lives Matter? To be honest with you, I was in a relationship. We broke up, and I paid for the fees after we did someone. I always had feelings that they had control over me. So I was not getting involved in the community. So I started figuring out ways I can make friends outside of my ex-boyfriend, how I could, get back to my community. So I was on volunteer here, volunteering, and I started on the open mic. And I started there was a visual from Mike Brown. And the whole vocal was something I've always been, and I really wanted to channel that. And so for me, it was about trying to see who was out in the community. I was in Indianapolis at the time, and I wanted to know what I could do to support the movement and to also be a person who is actually going to continue that type of work, continue to raise issues of injustice. And so I joined up with background in everyone, but I've also done work with and I do work with others, both here and then now I'm mentioned I'm national action here, and so I have a lot of different connections I've made just online. There's been a wealth of resources and people still active, maybe not in the way that they like to be, but still doing a different work. Okay. How I got involved was after Trayvon Martin. I lived in Tampa for a little bit, and I followed the case. I was like, oh my God, this isn't right, blah, blah, blah. And then, as Leah, I went through a breakup too, and I was moving back to Indianapolis. And
we might need to do some research on the correlation between breakups and activism.
I'm just saying, when women are single,
Yeah.
right now, we all single.
And I seen Leah went down to Ferguson, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to move back. I want to get involved. Needed to occupy my time, and I did want to always get involved in the community. Tampa didn't really, it's very diverse, but they never had like an outrage, or when Trayvon Martin happened, they didn't have a march or anything. When Mike Brown happened, they didn't have no type of vigil or anything. So as soon as I moved back, I was like, I want to join. I went to the first Indy 10 meeting, and it was all upstream from there. So now I'm here.
It's crazy because we talked about prior to you getting here, like even with Trayvon Martin, we get all the way back to Emmett Till. But when I was in college, when I was in undergrad, that was when Oscar Grant was killed. And that was when Sean Bell was killed. But we didn't have hashtags to be able to correlate instances of injustice on this magnitude of extrajudicial killings of black people nationwide. We didn't have the opportunity to compare notes and say this is an epidemic that we need to address. So meeting up with individuals like Star and doing Black Lives Matter movement, meeting up with Indy 10 and doing Black Lives Matter movement work, meeting up with SACH and doing work with the LGBT community, and work with individuals who are doing things with HIV and AIDS awareness, and individuals who are working with the church and things of that nature. All this stuff is intersectional, and all this stuff is Black Lives Matter work. But you don't really see a lot of white people in those spaces. That's why I was very encouraged when I heard about Surge and I met Victoria and Luke. Victoria, can you talk a little bit about how you got involved with the movement?
Yeah, so really up until July, I took the path that I think a lot of white people who may be in this room feel of, I like a really good Twitter game. You know, I can be hashtag Black Lives Matter, and I didn't know how to bring that into like the real world. And after the death of Philando Castile, it became just too much. And Luke and I got out our laptops and just Googled Black Lives Matter Indianapolis. And we found the Facebook page of Indy 10. And we went to a meeting. And somehow along that line, we also heard of Showing Up for Racial Justice, which the Indianapolis chapter was founded by Sarah Nolan and Ali Tab. They're amazing people. And so we really realized that most of what we could be doing was talking to white people. And so I guess my involvement went from Twitter to a few meetings to now mostly a talk to
What's you?
Much like that, I got involved in July, right after Alvin Sterling and Philando Castile. I had like a real moment of, I felt the shame of not doing anything. And I came to the Equity or Else meeting that both Don't Sleep and Indy 10 were partnering on, and was like really moved by everything happening there. And then I got to meet Sarah and Ali, as Victoria mentioned, and they showed me that the work that I could be doing is most powerful with other white folks. So that is what I'm doing.
And I'd be remiss, we mentioned a lot of names in terms of individuals who have been killed, but we also need to make sure that you're aware that there are several women who have been murdered in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement. You could go as young as Anaya Stanley Jones, you can go as old as Ara Rosser, or even older. But there are several women, and we actually pay homage and do an annual Say Her Name event. But even within the constructs of that, we also have to acknowledge that there are trans siblings who have been lost to state violence. So when we think about Mercedes Successful, when we think about just here recently in the past week, we learned 3 more trans murders. So we need to make sure that we are consistently within the Black Lives Matter movement acknowledging that that oppressive system that impacts African American men, while it may be highly publicized, also impacts Black women, also impacts people who are differently able. Natasha McKenna had her head bashed on the concrete when they were calling for support for her mental illness. You know, this happens on a regular basis, but it's not just Black men. Right? So I wanted to get into some of the frequently asked questions about the Black Lives Matter movement, because a lot of misconception and conversations happen in a vacuum. But the most widely addressed, I think, from my perspective, in dealing with church and dealing with a lot of, this is kind of generational too. You know, you say Black Lives Matter, but what are you doing about black on black crime, right? So I asked this, Indy 10, don't sleep, what is Black Lives Matter's opinion or perspective on this notion of black on black crime?
We don't know what black on black crime is.
It's no different than white on
It's a
white
myth.
crime.
Crime is crime. Everywhere.
Crime happens based on where you're at. So the proportion of crimes that are committed by Black people against other Black people are in the same proportion that white people commit crimes against other white people. But not once have you ever heard on the evening news about all the white on white crime and where are the leaders for the white on white crime and where are these white leaders collecting their white people that are doing all these horrible white crimes and all. You don't hear that. You hear about where are the Black leaders, where are the Black parents, where are the Black. Look, if y'all would quit locking us up, if y'all would quit doing all this stuff, there'd be a lot more Black people in the Black community. But, I mean, it's hard to parent your children when you're locked up on bogus charges on a drug war that is basically the Holocaust in slow motion against Black people.
Or we working 2 or 3 jobs because you're making $7.25 an hour. Another reason why you can't be at home with your 15-year-old or your 14-year-old is because you have to work 3 jobs. The mom has to work 3 jobs, and you probably lock the daddy up for weed or marijuana or something. So we need to talk about all crime. And some crimes, white crime might look different than black crime. State crime, state violence is, like we said, education. The lack of education in the Black community is violence. Food deserts is violent. You know what I'm saying? So we don't need to bring up crime, violence within the Black community unless we're going to talk about all crime throughout the system, with all races.
And the Black on Black crime is basically a caveat for, we don't really want to address the systemic racism. We just want you to focus on how we are oppressing you and what your role in that is. Why are you oppressed? Why are you not doing your job? We don't want to focus on the systemic issues that are making this crime happen.
And black on black crime is another slogan for the media to use to make black people look bad. It makes it, hey, there's black on black crime. Let's not talk about everything else, but they just want to make it look bad. So.
I agree with what Kevin said. And I also like to bring up that I think that oftentimes because it is being publicized, because it's not sexy, we don't talk about the work that activists and individuals and groups in our communities are doing to address the crimes that are happening in our communities. I, for instance, have had 2 cousins murdered in the past 2 years, and there are a lot of support in my community, upstate New York, that came around us and worked to not only apprehend their murderers, but to place them in prison. There were people who testified against these people. So I think sometimes we get lost on the whole black on black crime, not realizing that work is being done in that context as well.
So, legitimately, you know, crime in African American communities happens, but crime happens everywhere. We have to look at root causes to those crime issues. Just right off the bat, poverty. You know, where poverty exists, crime persists. We know there's a direct correlation, right? If you're in a food desert and there's food insecurity, you know there's a direct correlation between attention span and educational access or attainment and hunger. You go to school hungry, you might act up. What happens when kids act up in school, especially black kids?
They're suspended at a rate twice their white counterparts.
And they'll call the police on you. So if your first introduction to law enforcement and distrustful law enforcement is because you were hungry and you got kicked out of school, and that starts that progress. They're already criminalizing the neighborhood. There's already a pipeline, not just the school to prison pipeline, but a neighborhood to prison pipeline within black communities, right? You want to talk about black on black crime, which is just another way, another mantra, another phrase to criminalize black people. The Black Lives Matter movement hate police. We just hate police. Right? Ladies, anybody care to address that notion?
Okay, well, since I'm the one that does the work with the police, I'll go ahead and speak on this one. We do not hate the police. It's not if you stood an officer in front of us with no uniform on is just a person that we hate who he is. We absolutely will not continue to have the kind of violence that our officers show with no accountability for it, and that's where we have a problem. We have a problem when in 2015, 102 unarmed, let me say that again, 102 unarmed black people were killed by the police. Less than 2 of them were brought up on charges. Just let that sink in for a minute. That's the kind of statistics that we're dealing with. 102 unarmed black people,
It's like
and
16,
less than 2.
We have like 16 maybe a year. People killed by police. 16. And we have 102. It's ridiculous.
That were unarmed.
Yeah, we hate the police state. Yeah. Honestly, we hate the prison system. We hate our judicial system. So we may not hate the officer personally, but what that badge stands for, what the uniform stands for, we don't support it. That's just from Indy. That's that. We don't hate the police. I feel like we don't have to keep explaining this. Black Lives Matter has never came out and said, we hate the police ever. We ask that y'all stop killing us. We ask that y'all stop sending our brothers and sisters to prison for petty crimes or without any solutions, either just send us to prison. And then when we gather, right. Thank you. So we hate the police state in this country, but
In the militarized police, because we're not at war. That's just very simple. I don't understand why we have militarized police.
we are.
If the police are
We're at war.
militarized, we're at war. And that's not how it should be. We should not be, when we have vigils, when we have rallies, when we have those types of activities, the only people that come dressed for a riot are the police. We never come dressed for a riot. We never come prepared for a riot. We don't come with rocks and, things to hurt the police or anything like that. The only people that show up with equipment to hurt other people are the police.
Kyra, start.
That really is it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to explain that.
Yeah.
I think it's
Tired of
ridiculous.
it.
I think it just detracts from what we're trying to do, the real work we're trying to do. I think it's an excuse for people not to support
Yeah.
what we're trying to do.
It's also very frustrating because you would think that the police would affirm that Black Lives Matter. Because if your sole job is to serve and protect, and your sole job is to serve and protect everyone in your community, why wouldn't IMPD affirm that Black Lives Matter? Because they in fact do. But IMPD has taken the stance that they absolutely will not affirm Black Lives Matter, but all lives matter.
So this notion that Black Lives Matter is inherently anti-police is asinine. That, just because we're anti-police brutality doesn't mean that we have to be inherently anti-police. That's like saying you're anti-parent, but anti-child abuse, right? If we're seeking an end to the war on black people, if we know that police have the ability and the capacity to escalate situations and apprehend individuals without harm, we know that they have all these other weapons at their disposal. They've got zip ties, they got pepper sprays, they got, stun guns, but even those have been used to the extent that it's been lethal, because statistics have shown that they see African American men especially as being, more aggressive, more violent. Animalistic, higher pain tolerance, so on and so forth. The list goes on. You have the technology, you have the capability. There was an incident here where an individual was in the street, had mental illness. You have 2 police forces that could have came to his aid. You sent the one with lethal force instead of the one that had nonviolent armaments. Why? We know there is a way to apprehend, to do arrest referrals, diversion type tactics. There's a way. but you have to value our lives to want to employ it. So the only reason it seems adversarial with police is because we're always on defense.
Before you go on, can I refer to what you were saying to, were you talking about Christopher Gillow? You were talking about Christopher Gillow, who was a 25-year-old black man who was killed on the southeast side of Indianapolis. And what we asked that we have a petition and make sure, we like to make sure that which is crisis intervention training, so that they'll have to react instead of weapons.
Not only what was that,
James?
James, the introduction to her retired. Wait for all the Michael out in the and then like 3 days, but they couldn't even do 12 with Corinne.
They wouldn't let her family come in.
We all in the world, we have all the time in the world, negotiate 20 days, but one who's black got 20 minutes or
Well, and this is something I talk about in my class too. When you think about, and I don't know if anybody in here is related to police officers, I don't care if it's I am, but they're prepared to deal with this situation. When you talk about the number of training hours that they had, the lower numbers, crisis intervention training, because this is an elective, not well, so, but the rest are firearm training. See where the
use of force.
you know, there's not even a standard on the use of force. So we have all of these conversations saying issues. We just need you to address them. There's no reason training for police departments to get all 1,500 police in one room, have my video, take